daybreak on Arise News. It's time for the press preview. A first look at the front pages as they arrive, and we start with this day. It's leading with the 23 APC members seeking to replace Buhari. You can pick up the paper and take a look at those pictures. The story is on page 40. The federal government declines consent to Seplat Mobile oil producing asset acquisition deal. 2023 APC implosion imminent over move to keep presidency in North. Party chieftains warn. And returning ministers Buhari to determine Silva Ngige Talent's fate, and that's according to Lai Mohammed.
Let's take a look at the Nation this morning. The leading headline says why APC changed dates for governorship on other primaries. Riders to that story. Election of presidential candidates May 29 and 30. Another rider says party fears INEC sanctions. Just below that, 47 billion naira probe. EFCC detains ex-NDDC MD Ekere. Rider to that story, Minister suspends Accountant General under probe for 80 billion naira fraud. Let's take a look at that photo at the top in front of the Nation's newspaper. The caption says, kidnap suspects of Greenfield University students, another rape suspects during their parade by the police in Abuja yesterday.
The Punch newspaper is leading with the APC governorship primaries. Tough battles in Oyo, Sokoto and Rivers State as 44,045 delegates elect candidates. 80 billion naira fraud. EFCC uncovers 17 properties linked to the former accountant, the suspended accountant general of the Federation. 25 presidential aspirants failed and submitted forms. That's according to the APC. The Anambra State and police are warning against violence as the courts denied Nnamdi Kanu bail. And domestic airlines are saying that the flights may go above 100,000 naira.
And the Nigerian Tribune this morning, a full front page. Let's take a look at some of the headlines. Alleged 80 billion naira fraud. Federal government suspends. Accountant General postpones FAAC meeting. You can read more on that on page 6. And APC adjusts timetable, shifts convention, primaries dates, silent and zoning arrangements. Let's take a look at the headlines above the nameplate of Nigerian Tribune. Nigerian Association of Students threatens to shut down international airports nationwide. And just beside that, Lagos bans Okada in 6 local government areas and 9 LCDAs. And a rider to that story, mayhem as Okada Riders set Abuja market ablaze.
The international papers now. This is the Times. Hopes for a windfall tax blocked by number 10 team.
The Guardian UK. Police chief warns of surge in crime as cost of living crisis fuels poverty. And just below that, that photo, boy in the bunker, only one child left behind in ruins of Ukrainian village.
And the Financial Times, Nordic freeze, Erdogan stalls NATO talks. And other stories, Sunak warns of tough times ahead as inflation hits 40-year high of 9% in the UK.
And for the press preview, let's bring in Emmanuel Bello, who joins us from our outside studio this morning. Emmanuel, good morning. Thanks for joining us. Let's take a look at some of the headlines on the papers this morning. This day, leading with those photos. You know, this day always knows how to tell a story with pictures. It says 23 APC members seeking to replace Buhari. And just above the nameplate, returning ministers, some who had declared and now have withdrawn. It says Buhari to determine Silva Ngige Talent's fate, says Mohammed. What are your thoughts on these two headlines?
Well, good morning once again, Nkechi. The truth is that some of those ministers actually, like yesterday, they were already they are still working. So I don't know what fate again is being planned for them. Of course, there's been the argument whether they should actually go back to work or not. But yesterday, Ngige was in South Africa, doing still playing his role. Talent was Poly Talent attended the FEC meeting virtually. Malami is, of course, back in his office. I don't know whether something else is being planned or but they left many Nigerians wondering why they would choose to leave such, very important work they were doing and to seek, to be president. That's within their rights. But a lot of people want that, and then even the flip-flop didn't go down well with a lot of people. Someone who said he heard from God clearly that he should run for president, and suddenly saying that, he thinks he should stay. These are not well thought out decisions, it appears, or they were not anchored on serious reasoning or serious planning or even, serious statistics. And that is the same way some people are looking at these fantastic Nigerians on the front page of This Day this morning. Look at all of them looking radiant. But we are fact-checking them, and that's what this story is doing. And it's a fantastic story because we're helping the reader make up his mind or her mind on who these individuals are. There are 22 of them with a lady, Nkechi, that she interests you. She's the lone wolf in this pack, the lady who is running on her own records. And that's what many of them are running on this this lineup. A lot of them saying that they're better alternative to what we have today, bringing in their credentials. But by far, a lot of people, even the story started with that, looking at the general philosophy behind what's happening now. It's almost an all-comer affair. One thing you can be sure about all these men here is that they have got 100 million naira that they use in purchasing that form. Are they going to be fantastic president? Will they even win elections? How is the primary? The primary has been shifted to next week. What happens to them at the primary? They are crisscrossing the country. They are talking about their records. They are talking about what they can do. And so all eyes on them. One of them might likely become president. And if in the general election, as they slug it out with the PDP. It's very important too that we know them. And that's, I think, what This Day has presented to the readers this morning. Their faces, their philosophies, what they stand for, who they are. It's a beautiful story, one that newspaper should be doing, which is helping the reader make up his mind.
Well said, Emmanuel. The front page of the Tribune's leading with this one. Alleged 80 billion naira fraud. The federal government suspended the Accountant General of the Federation and has postponed its FAC meeting. I'm wondering, shouldn't this have come earlier? The moment that the news started going around, should we have waited this long? He could have made some moves already.
Well, Ken, it's also the general crisis of this story. Very troubling story. Last night I was just thinking about it, and I'm like, 80 billion naira. Some people are even doing the statistic of that money. That 80 billion could actually employ, is it 100 or so, or 1,000 university graduates get paid 230,000 in the next 30 years. We're talking about really mind-boggling money. This doesn't even look like theft. This looks like treason. Because we're talking about this kind of amount, we're talking about the person involved, the very heart of our finances. And we're at the time that everybody is crying globally about recession, about inflation, then you have this kind of theft happening. And that's why I say it's beyond theft, because this looks like treason already. The fact they're sharing, jamboree every month at FAC has been suspended because that couldn't happen because of what the monumental theft that was involved. So this is a serious story, and we must stay on this story as reporters, and I think the anti-graft agency too. We have to take this very seriously, because 80 billion is no joke. Where was he sourcing these monies from? How were his collaborators? Who, generally, where even, you and I can't actually think in terms of this kind of amounts in most cases. So where is this coming from? This is one of the biggest, thievery and hair story we've had in years. So I think we should stay on it and really look at every set as the papers are struggling to make any sense out of this monumental theft.
Well, still on the front of the Nigerian Tribune, just at the top there, says the National Association of Nigerian Students threatens to shut down international airports nationwide. This strike, it says they begs Atiku, Tinubu, others to raise money to meet ASU demands. Now they're just looking for just any way to end the strike and to put the students back into schools.
Yes, engage. That bit about begging Atiku and this other the people running for office, begging them to pull money and resources together to pay off their lecturers and let them go in. It's a bit. There's humor in it, but it's also touching. And yes, I mean it's these are students and they see all this kind of money. There's this 80 billion that in fact somebody was suggesting that this the Accountant General once berated us for asking for 18 billion. He said there was no such money, and here he is taking away 80 billion. So these are some of the kind of things that make you wonder where our priority lies as a country. We have even one of the ministers of education running for office, just running around while students are at home. It's unthinkable. It's inexcusable. It's disgraceful. It's embarrassing. I can't even find the right words. So the students are doing their best. They're barricading places. They're on protest. But this, should go to the heart of the matter and touch and prick the conscience of leadership at the very top. It's not as if these monies, I've always said that, look, the monies to pay off some of these things are not, it's not rocket science. And it's not as if it's not there. By the way, look at the monumental theft that we're talking about and how much are we asking. So it's come to the ridiculous, almost ridiculous and humorous stage now where the students are begging, Atiku, Tinubu, every other person, saying, look, why not just pull some resources together, pay off our lecturers and let us go back to school. These things can be done, it can be solved. The money is there. What you will be needing is the will and the priority. And if you're going to have a future, you must deal with the present, and that present is taking care of students and their welfare and their lecturers. Countries where there's serious leadership, countries that are thinking of the future generation, not just the next election, worry about the fact that children are not in school.
Well, Emmanuel, still on the Nigerian Tribune, just at the top as well, it says Lagos bans Okada in 6 local government areas. If I remember correctly, 2 years ago, Okada riders were banned in Lagos, and now, I mean, the ban was not lifted, so I don't know if this is a re-ban on the last ban. It just goes to show that there's a problem with enforcement in our country, Emmanuel.
There is, and one time it was Okada seemed to be the very symbol of security crisis. Okada, Abuja also had its own Okada crisis yesterday at Day Market. So the Okada is becoming a force, and I remember way back, even when I was in government, there was one time the governor I worked with practically was running the street and holding down Okada riders and banning them. So those Okada bans were really, tried to enforce them. In some states up to now, those bans are still, but you see them, even in Abuja here, you see them strolling into even areas where they've been banned. And so Lagos State, in Nkechi, you are right, needs to do more to enforce it. But again, even now, a plea coming from the Hausa community in particular, saying, look, don't ban us. In fact, even almost like a threat, saying, look, Okada riders accounts for close to 2.7 million voters in Lagos. And that if you ban them, you'll be playing with that. So they are dangling something that most politicians can't resist, the issue of votes. They say among most politicians that votes are thicker than water. So Sanwo-Olu may have to actually reconsider that, because he's confronted with something that he's looking at, the crisis of votes. It's a veiled kind of threat that, look, if you ban Okada, you are playing with 2.7 million votes. The politician in him is going to reconsider this decision. Yes, but if we are going to be serious about, curbing, criminality, and if you're looking at that demography, though some people say that it's not about just banning. Some of the, leaders in Lagos are saying that, look, why not just get a hold on who is supposed to be on this Okada, since they actually perform some rule anyway, and instead of just a blanket ban and asking them to stop their business. Because in fairness to those kind of reasoning, some of these Okada people have got just that business to take care of families, for their welfare, and in a time when we're talking about serious suffering people. But again, the bad eggs are there. So what they're telling the governor is that, why not just fetch out the bad eggs and leave the business to thrive, since it's playing some rules, and then of course you have to worry about your own votes.
You've said well this morning. Thank you so much, Emmanuel Bello, for joining us on the press preview.